prison that locals resented, yet one that prisoners feared. More than impossible to escape, surrounded by desert and engulfed in insufferable heat. Riots, suicide, and the infamous dark cell. This is the Yuma Territorial Prison. The beginning of the prison's history starts all the way back during the California Gold Rush in 1849. Americans began a westward surge, and areas like Yuma, Arizona grew in population. And, of course, with bigger population comes an increase in crime. So, in the year 1875, legislation authorized the construction of the Yuma Territorial Prison. Even before the prison was completed, prisoners were already on the grounds, building their own cells. The prison officially opened on April 28, 1876, and became home to 7 inmates on July 1st that year. The prison housed a variety of law violators, ranging all the way from murder to polygamy, and with major theft or grand larceny being the most common crime convicted. The prison had received its first female convict in 1878, just 2 years after its opening, and in that same year had its first escape. In its 33 years of operation, the prison in total had been home to 3,069 prisoners. 29 of those were women. Included in those numbers are notable prisoners, with the most famous, Pearl Hart, also known as the Bandit Queen. She was one of the only female stagecoach robbers in the West, with her stunt pulled along with Joe Boot in 1906. Pearl had disguised herself as a man, and the pair managed to steal about $450, which in modern day is equivalent to $3,507. After their failed escape and following imprisonment, Hart became a media sensation, with people asking for autographs from her and photographs. While in prison at Yuma, she managed to get perks out of the warden, like a larger cell, and was pardoned after just 2 years. Another famous woman was Elena Estrada, known as the Heartbreaker, but not for the reasons you would think. Her crime involved stabbing her unfaithful lover, cutting open his chest, and then pulling out his heart, throwing it at his face. One of the prison's Mormon prisoners was William Jordan Flake. In 1884, he was arrested for unlawful plural marriage, or polygamy. He ended up serving 6 months, and after lived as a cattleman with his 2 wives and 20 children. It's kind of odd that locals resented the prison, but when you look at the reasons why, it kind of makes sense. You see, Yuma Territorial Prison had more modern amenities than most homes in Yuma at the time. The prison had electricity, first installed in 1885, and became the first place in Yuma to have electricity. Forced ventilation, which is something you definitely want to have when you're living in the desert. They had a library, again, the first in Yuma. They even had a prison band. However, for the prisoners, it was a completely different story. They feared and loathed the prison, among them being sentenced there meant insufferable heat and tuberculosis, which was the #1 cause of death at the prison. Riots broke out. In 1887 was the Gates Riot, which resulted in 4 convicts dead and 1 wounded. Punishments were harsh, such as snake dens and ball and chain. Over the years of operation, the prison had a total of 111 deaths. Not only was it hard to endure the prison's hellish conditions, but it was nearly impossible to escape, surrounded by rivers, quicksand, and desert. However, the worst and most feared by prisoners was the dark cell. In 1894, the dark cell was dug out of the south wall of the prison. It was the most sinister punishment an inmate could receive, with reports of visitors feeling uneasy when entering the room. It was here in the dark cell that ill-behaved inmates were punished and forced to spend their time in severe isolation. The cell would be pitch black, and inmates would be forcibly stripped only to their underwear, chained to ring bolts, as guards would throw scorpions into the cell. It is reported that 2 inmates who had spent time in this cell had to be immediately transferred to an insane asylum upon their release. In 1900, the prison opened a new yard, one of the last expansions to the Yuma Territorial Prison. In that same year, one of the only known suicides occurred in the prison. John Ryan, imprisoned for his crimes against nature, committed suicide in cell 14. During his time at the prison, it is reported that he wasn't well liked by the prison staff, and to this day, tour guides say they can still feel his presence when near the cell. In the year 1909, the prison finally closed its doors. In 1910, Yuma High School operated at the prison until 1914. Currently, Yuma Territorial Prison is now a state park, offering guided tours and a museum to showcase its rich history. In 2024, I had the opportunity to visit the Yuma Territorial Prison State Park myself, and the prison's history is what made me want to make this video. I'm not from the West myself, so I never got much knowledge of its history in my classes, but from this prison's history, you learn about the effects of mass migration to the West, whether during the Gold Rush or after the Civil War, where many had left behind their law-abiding ways, and now became what we now know as the Wild West. It's no wonder this place is a hub of paranormal activity, with the prison's forms of punishment being harsh and severe, leaving the prisoners' souls to haunt the grounds. While during my time here, I personally did not experience anything paranormal, there's a number of sightings and interactions from visitors and staff to remind us of this prison's haunting past.